Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a whole bunch of material you sent over, all centering on CyberConnect.
Yeah.
Seems like it's all about their shot at building a Web3 social network protocol.
Hmm.
We've got the blueprint here.
Exactly. And our job today really is to unpack all that, cut through the jargon, figure out what CyberConnect is,
Right.
how the tech works, what's up with their CyberER token, and maybe most importantly, what does it actually mean for you, whether you're just using social media, building stuff, or creating content.
And the core idea, reading through this material, it seems like a pushback against the way things are now. Big platforms controlling everything.
Totally. Centralized control. Your data, your content, who you connect with, it's all monetized by them. CyberConnect is presented here as trying to flip that model.
Okay, so let's get into that vision then.
Well, the main goal, according to these sources, is pretty straightforward. They want to give developers the tools to build social apps where, the user actually owns their stuff.
Stuff like their digital ID, their content.
Their connections, how they interact, all of it.
So less like renting space online and more like owning your digital home. How does the tech make that happen? So they mentioned, what, 3 core pieces?
Right. 3 main technical components. First up is CyberAccount.
Okay.
They describe it as an ERC 4337 compatible account system, multi-chain. The big idea is making it super easy to get started, like no seed phrases, maybe no gas fees directly for the user initially.
Lowering the barrier to entry.
Exactly. And what's really interesting in the sources is how fast it apparently took off. They say it became the biggest ERC 4337 account system within like 24 hours of launching V3. That was back in July 2023.
Wow, 24 hours. That suggests people really wanted something like that. Easier access.
Seems like it. So yeah, CyberAccount is for the identity and making it easy.
Okay, got the identity layer. What's number 2?
That's CyberGraph. This is pitched as a smart contract layer that's censorship resistant. It runs on multiple blockchains, and its job is basically recording user content, social connections, who follows who, what posts link to what. And importantly, the sources say it has monetization tools built right in.
Okay, so identity via CyberAccount, and CyberGraph is where all the social interactions and connections live on-chain. And the third thing, it's more future-looking.
Yeah, that's Cybernetwork. It's described as a planned Layer 2 network. The goal there is making everything, cheaper and faster, more scalable, to really bring Web3 social to, potentially millions or billions of users without hitting those Layer 1 gas fee walls.
Gotcha. Identity, the social graph itself, and then the infrastructure to scale it all up. Makes sense. So who benefits most from this? The sources kind of break it down, right?
Yeah, they look at different groups. For developers, the pitch is basically making life easier.
How so?
Well, they don't have to build all that complex back-end plumbing themselves. And they get to tap into an existing network, potentially avoiding that whole cold start problem where you launch something new and nobody's there.
Right, they can focus on the app itself, not the pipes. Makes sense. What about for creators, people making the actual content?
For them, it's really about ownership and direct connection. The sources talk about creators owning their content distribution, how they make money from it.
So less reliance on the platform algorithm or ad model.
Exactly. The vision is a fairer, more direct, decentralized environment. That's the quote. Letting them grow their audience without, a middleman taking a huge cut or deciding who sees what.
And what about just regular users, people logging in, scrolling, connecting?
For users, it's framed as getting into Web3, but through something familiar like a social app.
Okay.
You'd find content, join groups, do all the usual social stuff. But the key difference is you own your identity, your connections, your interactions. It's about taking back control, essentially.
Okay, familiar interface, but different plumbing underneath where you hold the keys.
Cool.
Let's look at some specific features they mention. What's Cyber Profile?
Right, Cyber Profile. That's positioned as the kind of universal identity piece. It's not just a username. It's meant to be this self-sovereign digital ID that links all your content and connections together.
And did people actually use it?
Well, the source material notes that 1.25 million Cyber profiles had been minted by the time it was written. So yeah, pretty significant uptake for that core identity layer early on.
Over 1 million profiles. Yeah, that's a solid start. You mentioned CyberAccount uses ERC 4337. Account abstraction. Can you break that down a bit more simply? What's the benefit for me as a user?
Sure. Think of account abstraction, or AA, as making your crypto wallet smarter and way more user-friendly. Normally in Web3, you've got seed phrases. You need ETH for gas on Ethereum, Matic on Polygon, BNB on BSC.
It's a pain.
Right. It's a lot to manage. ERC 4337, used in CyberCount v3, aims to hide that complexity. So for you, it could mean maybe paying for a transaction on, say, Optimism using your cyber tokens that are actually sitting on the BNB chain.
Oh, okay. So I don't need 5 different gas tokens.
Potentially, yeah. It could use CyberEUR on one main chain to cover gas across others. It just smooths out those rough edges, makes multi-chain stuff feel less clunky.
That sounds like a huge deal for actually getting people to use this stuff.
Sure.
Okay, what about this W3ST thing, Web3 status token?
Yeah, W3ST, it's basically a non-transferable NFT. Think of it like a digital badge or proof of participation.
Like an achievement unlocked?
Kind of, yeah. The sources say organizations use them to recognize loyal community members or people who contribute a lot, building a contribution-based value system. And they mentioned
Yeah.
4.5 million W3STs have been minted.
4.5 million, so lots of communities were using these badges.
Seems like it. A way to show your involvement on-chain.
Interesting. And there's also the premium names, the .cyber thing.
Yep. Premium Cyber ID .cyber. Just like buying a .com or .eth domain, you can buy a unique, easy-to-read handle for your cyber profile.
And people actually paid for those.
Yeah, the sources give numbers. Over 42,000 users had bought one, apparently generating about 278 ETH and over 1,000 BNB in revenue. So definitely some real economic activity there. People value those unique names.
Okay, that shows some demand. Beyond those user features, they also mentioned developer tools and this growing ecosystem.
Right. They provide stuff like an indexing API so developers can easily query data, services to help cover gas fees for users, making apps feel gasless, even a recommendation engine.
Try to make building attractive.
Exactly. And they talk about partnerships, hackathons like one called #Connected2023 with BNB Chain. And crucially, they list over 50 third-party projects building on CyberConnect. Names like Favor, Read On, Huddle01 were mentioned.
50 projects is, well, that's not nothing. That's a sign developers are actually picking up the tools.
It's a strong signal, yeah.
And didn't they build their own app on top of it all?
Right.
Link 3?
They did. Link 3 launched back in Q2 2022. It's basically their own first-party social network built using the CyberConnect protocol, focused on community building, hosting events, especially for Web3 projects and teams.
And how did Link 3 do, according to the sources?
The numbers reported are pretty impressive, especially given they were achieved in less than a year. Over 2,500 verified organizations were using Link 3 profiles.
Any big names?
Yeah, like BNB Chain, Arbitrum, DYDX, Masari. Pretty well-known projects. They hosted over 10,800 events, generated over 1.8 million NFTs from posts, think proof of attendance, that kind of thing.
Wow.
And over 1 million users had joined things called fan clubs and minted fan passes on Link 3. So not just signups, but like actual engagement.
Okay, so they definitely proved their own tech could handle significant activity with Link 3. Yeah, that's compelling. Let's switch gears to the CyberER token. What role does it play?
So CyberER is the native token for the whole protocol. It's got both utility and governance functions baked in.
Okay, so what can you actually do with it based on the material?
3 main things listed. First, governance. Holding CyberER gives you voting power on protocol upgrades, changes, that sort of thing.
Standard governance token stuff.
Pretty much. Second, payment for CyberER. You need CyberER to buy those premium .cyber usernames.
Ah, okay, direct utility there.
And third, maybe the most integrated use, is as the cyber account gas token. Remember how we talked about paying gas on different chains?
Yeah, using CyberER on one chain to cover fees elsewhere.
Exactly. Within that cyber account system, CyberER is the token used to measure and pay for those cross-chain transaction fees. And the sources hint that the Cyber DAO, once launched, would likely introduce more uses down the line.
Okay, so governance, naming, and crucially fueling those cross-chain transactions via cyber account. What about the tokenomics, the numbers side? This was as of August 1st, 2023, right?
Correct. So the ticker is CyberER. It's on Ethereum as an ERC20 and on BNB chain as a BEP20. Total supply is capped at 100 million CyberER. That's the max ever.
And how much was circulating initially?
The initial circulating supply right at launch was pegged at 11,038,000 C5ER. That's about 11% of the total.
Only 11%, so a lot locked up or vesting.
Seems that way, yeah. Pretty standard for token launches to manage supply release over time.
How did they distribute that initial supply and the rest of the 100 million? Were there sales?
Yep. They had private sales that raised $25 million, selling just over 25 million C5ER, then a public sale via CoinList that raised $5.4 million, with the price set at $1.80 per C5ER. Apparently, tons of interest, 525,000 people registered for that one.
Wow. And Binance Launch Pool.
Right. They allocated 3 million CYBA, or 3% of the total, to the Binance launch pool, which started August 2nd, 2023.
Okay, so looking at the whole 100 million pie, how's it sliced?
All right. The breakdown given is Binance launch pool 3%, public sale 3%, community rewards season 1 2.4%, future community rewards 6.6%, so 9% total for community rewards. Then community treasury gets 10.88%, ecosystem partners 9%, developers community 10%, marketing 10%, early integration partners 5%, team and advisors 15%, and the biggest slice went to those private sale investors at 25.12%.
Quite a spread. Interesting how much is earmarked for community, ecosystem, and developers combined, though. Seems focused on growth.
Yeah, a significant chunk is dedicated to building out the network and rewarding participants.
Makes sense. Okay, briefly, what about their roadmap? What have they done, and what's next, according to these sources?
Looking back, the material shows pretty consistent progress. V1 back in 2021, Link 3 in 2022, V2 later that year, V3 in 2023. Plus, funding rounds, campaigns, getting ranked on Dapradar, the public sale. It shows a steady buildup.
So, not just vaporware, and going forward from the source state.
Well, for Q3 2023, the plan was rolling out V3 onto more chains like Optimism, Arbitrum, OPBNB, running that Cybertech campaign, and launching the Cyber DAO for governance.
Getting the core tech out there and decentralized controls started.
Exactly. Then, for Q4 2023, assuming DAO approval, they aimed for a Cyber Wallet app and a login with CyberConnect SDK, making it easier for other apps to plug in.
Right, more tools for adoption.
And looking further into the first half of 2024, again, subject to DAO votes, plans included a developer grant program, getting V3 onto even more chains, and the big one, launching that Cyber Network Layer 2.
Okay, so scaling is definitely on the horizon. They also mentioned specific partnerships and integrations, right? Making it work with other stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Things like integrating the .cyber names into platforms like QuestN and Huddle01, partnering with Muckaverse, integrating with XMTP for like secure cross-wallet messaging.
So you could DM someone just using their wallet address or Cyber ID?
Potentially, yeah. That's the idea behind XMTP integration. And using LivePeer for decentralized video. Plus, that Cybertrek campaign was all about partnerships with different blockchains and projects to push usage of the account abstraction features.
So it's not meant to be an island. It's designed to connect with the rest of Web3.
That seems to be the strategy, yeah. Be the social layer that plugs in everywhere.
Cool. Lastly, just quick community numbers. What did the sources say back in August 2023?
Let's see. Twitter, the main account, had 385K followers. The Link 3 specific Twitter had 174K. Discord had 176K members. And Telegram had 29K.
Okay, decent numbers across the board. Shows a pretty substantial community following the project.
Absolutely. That community buy-in is pretty critical for these kinds of network protocols. Suggests good mindshare.
Right, so we've really drug into CyberConnect based on this material. The tech stack, CyberCount, CyberGraph, CyberNetwork, the value for devs, creators, users. Features like CyberProfile, W3ST, the tokenomics, the roadmap. It's definitely an ambitious plan to build that user-owned social foundation for Web3.
Yeah, it really is about providing those core building blocks, shifting control away from platforms and towards individuals.
Which leaves us with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to chew on. If this kind of model where users genuinely own their digital identity, their connections, if that really takes off, what happens next? Like, how does that change our ideas about online privacy, If your identity is persistent and verifiable across platforms, what does that do to online reputation? Could it make our digital relationships, I don't know, more meaningful?
Yeah.
Or maybe just different compared to the kind of walled gardens we have now?
It definitely opens up some big questions about what digital life looks like when the users hold the keys.
Indeed. A lot to think about there. Well, thanks for walking us through the sources on CyberConnect today.
My pleasure. Good stuff to dive into.